I'm excited today to have Nathan Newberry on the podcast. Nathan is a husband and father of three, and he understands the delicate balance between scaling a business and maintaining a fulfilling personal life. After 9 years of running his agency and later selling it, he discovered that true success comes from systems, not endless hustle. Through his journey from pastor to marketing agency owner to leading sales teams that are generating over $1 million monthly, he's developed the AI Freedom Method, a unique approach combining high ticket sales, AI automation, and strategic team building that lets you scale without sacrifice. Today, he is helping ambitious coaches escape the 10 to 30K plateau using proven frameworks that create predictable revenue. Nathan believes in real results over empty promises, in leveraging AI over manual grunt work, and in sustainable growth over quick fixes. Through weekly coaching and implementation support, he helps founders build businesses they're proud of while protecting what matters most: time with family. Nathan, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hope I can give some wisdom and help some people that are listening here to help scale and grow.
Always the goal.
Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
I'd love to start with you sharing a little bit of your story with our listeners. I hit a few of the high points, but I'd love to hear particularly about your journey and your development as a leader. How'd you get started?
Yeah, I mean, the big one was, being in team sports, right? Growing up, putting in place in leadership just because I have that personality type that is just kind of a go-getter and wants to lead, wants to help, wants to support. But my dad was a pastor. My grandpa was a pastor. My uncle was a pastor. My brother, my cousin.
Wow, kind of the family business, right?
Family thing. I mean, we love Jesus in our home, and we want to point people to him as much as possible. But it was just cool to kind of see how can we lead people, and that was kind of like the starting off of just like how do I coordinate doing that. I was a pastor for years too, and that helped me learn how to lead people. The other part of this too was I worked with a lot of volunteers, and if anybody's volunteered, the leading of volunteers is way different than employees,
That's
and
so true.
There's some different ways that you have to think through and process and work with people and have a lot of empathy with that. But that, my story was, after ministry, I was like, what do I do now? Like, I got a bachelor's degree in theology. I was thinking I would always be a pastor, but my mentality was never financial, just because when you're working in nonprofits, you're there for the impact. You're not there for the dollar. And I was like, I just understood that. But, and as a young guy too, of not being married yet and then not having kids, you don't really figure out those responsibilities and stuff. But I do remember vividly coming back. We did some missions out in Europe and we came back and I was like, all right, what do I do now? If I'm not going to do ministry, what do I do? And I remember this old, quote from Jonathan Edwards. He said, make as much money as you can, save as much money as you can, and give as much money as I can. I was like, all right. So if I'm not going to be the one doing the impact, I just want to at least have a lot of impact by giving. So I needed to make a lot of money to do that, to, sort through everything. But I do remember vividly coming back, and this was, over a decade plus ago now, but I remember coming back. I was like, man, if I can make, 40K a year, it's like now, and then you have family, and it's just like you realize, gosh, I don't know if I can even survive off of 40K now. It's just like the growth, and then the time of everything. But that shifted into some entrepreneurship chaos and challenges with leadership and growth. And at one of the ventures I had, coming back from being nonprofits, like I didn't want to talk to anybody as much. I just want to work with my hands. So one of the ventures that, I ended up hating was a fencing company that turned into a construction business. But I had 12 guys on my payroll. I had an office, I had trucks, I had materials, but I figured out all the marketing side of it, but I hated everything else because people were ripping me off and stealing from me. My cup of tea, it's just everybody finds those lanes that they're great at, but I learned the marketing side. So the only one that had a website, the only one that had leads, the only person that picked up the call, when someone called in, it was just like some simple things that I figured out, how to be. And I started getting asked by other people, how did you do this? And so it just kind of grew into a marketing business. And I figured out what I loved about this, and this could be helpful for anybody that's listening in, is the reach that we want and freedom doesn't have to be mileage from our house. And that was a big thing from Shift of like, I only can work with people within the driving distance of my office or my house. But really, we're globalized audience now. So we can help anybody, everybody. And that was a big understanding and aha moment for me. And when I started my agency, and I know a lot of your listeners are agency owners too, is I started reaching and helping people all over the world. And I never even met them, but I was able to impact in such a way. And I worked, my niche was working with churches and nonprofits too. So there was impact part that I was able to help them exponentially grow on those levels of things too. But it was fun to work and create and build. And I remember I was traveling to one of my clients, and I was coming home after just a busy few days of like capturing content and developing stuff and working with their team at a big mega church. And I was coming home. I was like, man, this is so fun. This is exactly you get those moments or aha moments like, this is what I love doing. And that was great. I did that for 9 years, and then I had some kids, and I was like, all right, I'm just, the one thing I like doing now is just working with people and seeing the impact. Let me just do sales. And something that I realized, even after, leading sales teams for a while, was there's 4 key skills in a business that everybody needs to constantly learn. One of them is how to market yourself. The other one is how to sell your service and product. The other one is you know how to do the fulfillment. And then the other one is knowing how to lead people, which is some of the big things that we're talking about here, but also creating systems, automations, so those things can work really efficiently, right? And so I did sales for a while, and then, be able to lead people because I did really well because I cared for people, what I thought around, sales part of things. But now I help people just build an online business, run ads efficiently, lead media teams and sales teams, and build those out in a way that's really efficient, so that you can have a lot of freedom in your life and not feeling like you have to be stuck to the normal 40 to 80 hour, 100-hour hustle and bustle of, building the business, so.
It's an incredible journey so far. I mean, just to hear all the different pieces, and I firmly believe there's no such thing as a wasted experience. I think every one of those experiences made you who you are and has helped you to add value like you do. So somebody's listening and they're like, wow, that sounds great. This whole idea of sustainable growth and real results and all that. But where do I start? I mean, because I'm in the middle of those 60, 70, 80-hour weeks, and I'm really good at what I do. But man, all those other pieces, your 4 things, like, I don't know about those. Where do they begin?
Well, I'll tell you something. Like, I remember at a point in between doing construction business and starting my marketing agency, I ran a recruiting office. And a recruiting office, you have a lot of churn and you hire a lot of people. And I remember at one point just telling my wife about like the struggles and stuff. And she's like, maybe you should, you're not good at this leadership stuff. Okay. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm trying my best here.
Right.
And I remember telling her, not argumentative, but it was also because I'm a verbal processor, understanding some of this honey, it's a skill. I'm still learning it. Like, I'm reading books. I'm still learning. Like, and so it was a registered thought of like, all right, I probably need to learn some of these stuff. And I'm constantly learning how to lead well. And I'm not always the best, and you'll never end, with stuff. And something that you know as well as I do, the interesting part of that about our market now is that we have 5 generations in the workforce now. That's never happened before in history. So I have 5 different generations of people, depending on the culture and, everything you're building. But a lot of people have to deal with 5 different generations. And there's this thing called EQ now, where it's like you're looking at the emotional part of like how people dissolve, because we're mentally, we're wired. We just react and make decisions based off of emotion. As much as people want to like say they do it logically, it's not the case, so we're all emotional beings in how we process this stuff. But getting to your point of like, how do we start? You just got to be thrown in the deep end and see if you can do it. Everybody needs to know how to lead. Everybody's leading on some capacity, number one, leading themselves into strong, helpful disciplines that help them thrive and feel energetic and, being smart about some things. It's like, do I stay up till 3 o'clock watching The Office or the Parks and Rec? I got to lead myself with saying, hey, I got to shut off, even though I want to binge it so I can wake up early to still perform well in my business or job, right? You got to lead yourself. And if you're not able to lead those people well, you're going to struggle as well.
I love how you talk about leadership as a skill. And I think the conversation you had with your wife around that is one that a whole lot of people have had. They're like, I'm really good at this marketing thing, or I'm really good at this construction thing, or whatever the business is that you have. But leadership's a different skill.
Mm-hmm.
And as you find success at whatever it is that you're doing, you have to hire other people to help you with fulfillment. Right. And then all of a sudden you have to lead those people. Like, what was that journey like for you as you began to scale? And all of a sudden people were looking to you to lead, and you were realizing, oh man, I got some growing to do here.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it was hard challenges, to say the least, because I realized it's like, what I'm wanting is someone to do something and read my brain. Right.
Right.
And if I don't have the right procedures, SOPs, playbooks, then I'm going to be frustrated when I'm hiring. Yeah. I've, been recruiting and building sales teams. And when I ran my marketing agency, I probably have hired over hundreds of people in my team here. And what I realized is two challenges that I've had with hiring. Either I hired emotionally and it was a competency gap because I didn't hire well, right? Yeah. And or I didn't have the right systems in play for them to be successful, right?
That's good.
So I'll give you an example of what I mean by this. When I was in ministry, I ran the college group at our church that grew pretty substantially. I grew a coffee business within our church. I ran all the sound, and this is a bigger church, mega church, 7,000 to 8,000 people, 9-foot analog board. Like, you have tons of different volunteers and everything. And I ran all the worship. What I realized is I had 4 different expectations from 4 different people. Okay. It was never defined what I did. And it was frustrating, and they were frustrated. And I was like, I had to sit down and define everything. But what that gave me clarity was, if I can define my role, I can also define the expectations for everybody that I lead. And if I don't have that clear, no one will ever feel like they level up because they've never defined a bar that they hit. Right. And they feel good and confident that they've hit that expectation or even surpass it because they never know what the bar to hit.
Yeah.
Right?
What's the win? You didn't define the win.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with building any team, is you have to define things. And the leverage of AI now can help you craft this than ever. Feeling like you don't have to start at, zero. You can literally ask ChatGPT to help you define what a standard operating procedure or a playbook in sales or marketing or how to design checklists. And, at the point where I'm at now with my business is I show up and I coach my clients, which I love, and I show up to be the talent to record stuff. Am I the one that goes and edits all my videos, that lines up the podcast, that opens up the speaking engagements or helps me with hooks? And no, my team helps me handle all of that because I've created systems, created clear expectations of KPIs, and then help them continue to train them so they can hit those expectations and go beyond it. Right. And those are just hard lessons that I've had to learn, because after hiring hundreds of people, it was because I was not leading them well. If I needed a website to be done, I needed ads to be run, I needed things to be set up. Like, you can think in systems. And I teach my team this, and anybody that I coach too, is like, I need you to document and think in systems. If you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again, record what you're doing, have it transcribed, put it into AI to create the playbooks. Or what I do now is, and this is one of my mentors that I love, this phrase here. He's like, millionaires think in systems, billionaires think in hiring people that build the systems.
Smart.
So if you can think ahead that way, and your growth in that journey of success, is hiring is very important. But marketing is a crux of every aspect of the business. So when I talk about those 4, skills of, marketing, sales, fulfillment, and leadership, it's like, if I don't have any clients, then I don't need to worry about the fulfillment. I don't need to worry about leadership because there's nothing to automate, systemize, or, So it all starts off with getting in front of people to then sell. So it's like, every aspect of a business, the importance of marketing is so essential, and people they miss that. And I've coached a lot of marketing agencies over the years too. And some of the big challenges is that they're in the business, not working on it. And then they're based off a referral, and the cash flow is tight, and they, feel like they can never hire because they never have stability in the business. That's just because they're not marketing and doing what they're doing for clients. They're not doing for themselves. So,
That's so true so often. You talk about sales being one of the 4 things, and I think that can be a challenge for some business owners, and agencies no exception to that. As you talk with people about sales, what are some of the things that you have to overcome when you're working with the clients that you coach?
Good question. Because a lot of great marketers they're more tech heavy.
Yeah.
They're analytical. They're like, if I could just design systems or websites all day long and I never have to talk to another human being, there's
right.
it,
Yeah.
But here's the interesting part. Sales is hard because you're thinking that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I realized with sales. Everybody gets the bad taste in their mouth with feeling like they've been pushed into something that they didn't want to do. And so they're fearful. Well, it's the limiting belief. Okay. They watch the movie Wolf of Wall Street, The Boiler Room, and they see these sleazy guys trying to push stuff that's hurting people more than helping people.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting part of selling. Everybody does it. Okay.
Yeah.
I have to sell my wife to marry me. I have to convince my kids to eat vegetables. I have to go, talk with the guy to help me, convince him to give me the best deal on, mowing my lawn, or, getting a piece of property, or negotiating on whatever. Right.
Yeah, that's
right.
right.
And so that's a skill in itself. And so it's just like, learn marketing, but you also need to learn sales. There's a book. This is where I learned this, and why I went into learning sales myself was because I was the same way. I was like, if I could just design websites all day long, it'd be the blast. Right. Yeah. And then I realized I got to build teams to scale, and I got to work with people. And so I had to develop, the skill of learning and of sales and negotiate. And there was a book from Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a well-known book.
Yeah.
But he just in a quick cliff notes, is he had as a poor dad, which is really still a well-to-do professor dad that's making good money. That's the normal noble job. But his rich dad, that's really wealthy, that owns a bunch of stuff, and told him to go learn sales. Why? Is because he realized that it's like, if you can learn that skill, you'll be able to be successful in everything else, because everything it's hinged off of the transaction of money. A business doesn't start until there's transaction of money. Right. So it's like, I can market all day long, but I still need to convince that person or that company to work with me. And then I can do the fulfillment and lead and build teams and systems. Right. So I think there's a blend of marketing sales that goes so well, but I think if your offer is compelling enough in what you're doing, it will sell itself. And I think you need to have that blend of being able to market and sell really well. So the time you have that sales conversation, it's a layup to do it. But I think there's some simple conversations in some service and information products that everybody can learn with just some simple frameworks, and then being able to know how to handle objections, which is really just overcoming the challenges that you have because you didn't come up with the right discovery questions to ask in the first place. So it's all a part of the process of learning how to do some of that sales. But yeah.
That's good. I like that. You mentioned AI a couple of times a minute ago. If people in agency world, of course, are familiar with this. They're seeing this every day. It's a part of the agency world in a very big way. But a lot of the other business owners and leaders who are listening may not be as familiar with how this can benefit them and help them. You talk about this a lot. I would love for you to share just a little bit about some of the ways that you're seeing this used or using it yourself.
So Dan Martell, in his book called Buy Back Your Time, actually I have it on my desk here. It's a good book to check
Great
out.
Book.
Okay, very tactical approaches of how to think through it. But his hiring ladder is, first you need to get out of your own inbox and calendar, and then you have someone to help you with the fulfillment, and then you work on marketing and sales, and then you're in that leadership role that everybody wants to be in, but they don't know how to ever get to. But it's really kind of leading that empire where you have all the different information and you're kind of the controller of the company. And ultimately, you can hire a CEO to do that, and then you're just in be able to come in and check in a few different points, right? So this is what I realize is every aspect of those hiring ladders, they can leverage AI for the people that are in it, but you also need to know how to be efficient to buy back the time. So I thought about every aspect of the things in my life that I wanted to do, and I had my assistant help me with it. Me drive, and I count for everything. So the time I have is very limited. That's what everybody doesn't have. Like the wealthiest people and the poorest people all have the same exact time. So I need to count for it well. The Bible talks about this, a lot too in the Proverbs. So anyways, I look at my time in terms of like drive time. What am I doing in this? I think about my calendar and what's on it and the time I need to do this. So here's a few different steps that I look at in terms of sales market is I carve out specific time on my calendar of when I'm doing content, when I'm looking at my finances, when I'm doing marketing assets and creating things like this. But I also do this with sales calls and podcasts. So my assistant will go through and research a bunch of different stuff on my behalf. So in the steps that I have, I created a system of like, this is what I normally do when I'm looking for someone or I'm vetting someone, or these are all the links I need to help me do, and they create a dossier. And so that way, 5 minutes before the episode, I literally can go in, I just have it dictate, read it to me. I click on a few different links, gives me some understanding of it, and I'm able to jump into the sales conversation or jump into the podcast or jump into negotiation or jump into, partnerships and connections because now I have context. And so my assistant will use AI tools to scrape this, use some of these different elements that buys back my time. We use this with content. To create content. AI can help you with creating what we know now for the time that someone watches something, a YouTube video or everything. You need to have the hook that's really good within the first few seconds. And so AI can help you craft some of those things and script out things. And so some of the AI prompts and stuff that I create for myself and for my clients is helping create an AI bot that understands someone's pricing, packaging, and offering and their style of speech, right? That allows AI to really kind of script out something in a way that seems genuine and clear around some of the key buckets of content and everything that you're doing. And then even the ads, right? AI knows more about anybody's industry than ever. And so it's like pulling from that information and that capsule of knowledge, I think is going to be so helpful for people to just kind of use it as tools and leverage in every aspect of marketing, sales, leadership, KPIs, like dashboards, Excel spreadsheets, like have it create, have it edit, have it help you kind of process and think through every aspect of your hiring and firing and sales and marketing. And I think if you can think in systems and then have AI to help you build some of those systems, people are going to be able to run quicker and be efficient. And then if you train your team to run in that level and think in systems, you're an unstoppable force.
I agree. We've been using it daily for probably a year and a half now, and it has been a tremendous difference maker for our team, for me, in not only some of the smaller tasks, but I use it as a brainstorming tool.
Totally.
Where I'm saying, hey, let me think of 15 ways of thinking about this. I'm thinking about this topic. Give me some off the wall ways of looking at that. It's astounding. It's a brainstorming tool unlike anything I've ever found. Even another person is not going to give me sometimes some of the perspectives and angles that I'm going to get from AI. That has been incredibly useful for me as I think about content, as I think about things that I'm creating for clients or for teams. It's been helpful to think about different perspectives that I simply would not have solo.
I use it in everything. Like today, I use this for like my fitness stuff. Like I'm a big on transformation fitness journey right now. Yeah. And today I was like, why am I a little sluggish? And I went into ChatGPT, here's what I'm doing. This is what I'm eating. Why am I feeling this way? And they're like, oh, you didn't eat this. And I missed like oats, which was a specific carbs because I ran a bunch of miles today and I just felt sluggish. I'm like, what's going on? I took all my vegetables, electrolytes, what the heck is going on? And I'm like, oh, I missed that. And they kind of helped me discover that of what my quandary was. I'd give you another example. My brother-in-law turned 50 a few days ago. My wife's like, hey, don't forget to text him. And I asked ChatGPT, hey, write something up for me, with this style of voice. And I want to include this kind of humor with it. All right. And it, I had to give it a few different, say, I don't like that. Try again, and it gave me some different stuff until I liked it. And in 2 minutes I had a text message that I was able to send off. Right. So I
I
think
love
it's
that.
totally in reasoning, processing in every area of your life, like do it.
Hmm. Nathan, you have to lead at a higher level today for your team, your business, your clients than you did even 2, 3, 4 years ago. And that same thing is going to be true 3, 4, 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stay on top of your game? How do you level up with the new leadership skills that your team, your business, your clients are going to need you to have in the years to come?
I'm always learning. So there's always books on leadership I'm reading.
Mhm.
But I'm also like buying courses on like
Mm,
leadership and EQ and all these different stuff.
mm,
I'm also being around other high level leaders that I
yeah,
can be around. So I think
that's
the
good.
association, the input that you have,
Yeah,
but I had to lead myself, right? I
yeah,
had to get really clear on my objectives and
that's
goals
good.
and really stay focused and disciplined on doing the hard things. And
Mm,
I think so often we try to think, hey, if we get in retirement, if once we're out of school, things will be easier, or once I have this amount of money in my bank, or once the kids leave, like whatever it is, like it's not. Is it going to get easier? It's just harder, and
mhm,
if you can come to grips with it's just hard, you're going to be able to learn how to rise above it and not feel smothered or drowned in the hard. And I
mm,
think people feel like leading is just hard, but it's like once you build some systems and automations and some clarity around as clear expectations, you're going to see people take off and be able to help you do more than ever that you think, is
mm,
possible. That way you can really have more clarity. And so this is where I think of the AI freedom method is it's like you got to build the systems,
mhm,
that people can, create and hold true. So that way you can have more bandwidth of time, flexibility, and freedom to they'll go and deploy and create more. But if
that's
you're
good.
drowning in the fulfillment and not working on the business, then it's going to be very challenging for people to even think about it because it's not just reading another book, it's applying what you probably already know to be
Mhm,
true. And first time it's like leading yourself. How can you show up to be your best? You're a high
mm,
performer. High performer athletes take account of every little thing, the amount of time that you sleep, that you veg, that you eat crap, and like those inputs. And so it's like, as I've grown in my entrepreneurship journey, I realized the inputs of things and the voices and things in my, like, I don't look at news. I don't really watch a whole lot of TV and movies. I might do it once in a while, but those are other voices and influence that just affect my mood and how I think and translate and
mm,
see the lens of what's possible in this world,
yeah,
And so even the people you're around too, like that's a big thing. If you got your
yeah,
bowling club or, people around you, like nowadays, like when I talk with people, even new people I meet, say at church or other people, it's like, if I can't talk about what I'm passionate about, it's very hard for me to connect with other people. And I'm okay with being misunderstood because I'm in a lane of high performance and excellence. And so if you want to talk about football, you want to talk about Joe Schmo, this, that, and the other, I'm like, I have no idea. I have no concept of that stuff. And I'm completely fine with it. But they want to connect with me on some of the other stuff. And I was just like, I got my crowd that I hang out with that's more at a high level that appreciates more of that high level context of like what you're dealing with on a business level and a personal level. Like I'm always trying to read and level up with those kind of connections.
mm. I think most people underestimate the power of the people that you spend time with and how much of an influence that makes on your life. We've heard it, we've read it. It is so incredibly true. And I love that you're living that out and expressing that in such a clear way. You've mentioned at least one book so far in our conversation. Is there that one, or is there another one that you would say, hey, this book has made a big difference in my journey, and I would love to recommend it to the leaders who are listening?
The way I learned is I learn in seasons and stints. There's,
Hmm,
those constant skills I'm always refining on. So I always have
sure.
a different season I'm learning on certain things. Like when I was
Yeah.
doing sales full time, I read books on sales. When I was managing sales teams, I was reading books on management and leadership and sales teams. It just depends what season I am, but I'm obsessed in like learning that one thing. More
I
often
get
than
it.
not,
Yeah.
people switch. Like they'll read a leadership book and then a sales book, and then they'll read a biography and this, that, and the other. And then I think it confuses our brain of what we need to focus on. So like if you took the next quarter and say, all I'm going to read about is sales, all I'm going to read about is marketing or AI, or all I'm going to study and consume on YouTube is like focused on just that. And you can stop of like yourself and say, hey, I'm not focused on that right now. I'm focused on this. And that season will allow you to build and scale quicker because you're condensing the amount of information you're receiving, but then it'll create the inputs and outputs that you need to kind of stack those skills. But some of the books that I'm reading at the moment is just definitely Buy Back Your Time. I've read that a few different times, but I'm involved in different communities that are talking about scale and leveling up. But the big one that everybody needs to learn, and this is why I'm saying this, is the confidence that you create in yourself to do whatever you need to have is coming from a place of identity. And most of the time, people don't know who they are because they never align themselves with actually who created them. So people need to get real of just everything. I mean, the reason why I studied theology is because I remember at 17 surfing in the most beautiful spot in San Diego where it was sunset, the dolphins were popping up. It was the best. It was just amazing. And I was like, there has to be a creator. If there's a creator, I got to know who they are. And that got me into traveling all over the world. I lived in Israel where Jesus did most of his ministry. And it became so real to me that people need to have that clarity as well. And so studying the Bible is so, so important. If someone wanted to start, there's 66 books in this whole book, start in the Gospel of John. And that's going to open your eyes to be the realistic part about everything. And another book that I read every year that I just like, I don't know why I read it, but it's Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. I've been reading that for years. Every year, start of the year, I read that. And then I read through the Bible every single year. I've been doing that over a decade. And I try to I'm an audio learner, so I have it read to me and I'm able to read through it in 10 to 15 minutes every day. And it allows me to really kind of get a clarity on who I am from the maker that created all of us. And yeah, my kids were asking me the other day, how do you know God's real? The Bible says, we even watched this, that nature itself proves that there's a God.
Yeah.
So if there is a God, then try to figure out who it is and have a relationship with him. And that's the journey I took. And so the Bible is another good book.
Love it. Nathan, I know our listeners are going to want to stay connected to you and continue to learn from you and more about what you're doing. What is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm everywhere. I mean, one of the things I talk about is being omnipresent. You can look my name up, Nathan Newberry, anywhere. I'm mostly on Instagram. I have a full checklist for anybody that's wanting to learn how to buy back their time even more and I have a full checklist and some workshops and other free training that I can give. If someone, DM me on Instagram or anywhere, your name, I will definitely give all those listeners some access to some exclusive things for them if they message me there. But I have my own podcast as well. I got to have you on it one of these days as a guest for sure. And so, yeah, anybody can find me everywhere, Nathan Newberry. That's where they can connect with me more.
Excellent. Well, I'll look forward to that, and we will have those links in the show notes. Nathan, thank you for your generosity of time and insight today. I know people are going to be blessed by this.
Thanks so much for having me, man.